So this is the first time we've talked over summer since about April, May time, I guess it was. It's been a long summer, but you're working towards a provisional date now. So does that give you a bit more focus, a bit more purpose?
Yeah, and like I say, it's been a long time coming. It's the biggest layoff I've ever had from football in the last 20 odd years. So it's been quite nice in a certain sense because we've had time to refresh and rebuild. But everyone's just itching to get back from a supporters level, from a players level, and particularly from mine, Aaron and Gideon's. Like we can't wait to get back. So. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but we're getting there slowly with all the plans being put in place.
How has it affected all the usual business you'd have to do over a summer to have it so long this year?
I mean, the big thing was, in all honesty, was because the season finished so abruptly, you didn't have a chance to say goodbye to players. Like the 1 week we were playing and midweek we kind of got news that there might be a cancellation or a postponement, and some leagues were and some leagues weren't, so it was all up in the air. But even at that stage, kind of 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, we didn't know if the league was going to restart, and it was all kind of up in the air. So that was tough, like not being able to say thank yous and well dones and all the stuff you want to say as a manager after a season. But in truth, over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've had the boys back in on Saturdays, and they've all had their chance to get back to the swing of things quite quickly. So it's been all right. But yeah, it was difficult. But in truth, it's given us time to prepare, probably a little better than we would have had done if the season had finished any later. We've had opportunity to speak to more players. Obviously, put greater plans. I mean, the club is probably in a slightly better situation because of it financially. Obviously, we weren't spending money on securing Winchester every week. So whilst it's a difficult thing to say that we've benefited from a global pandemic, because clearly that's not the way you want to benefit, but we'll take the silver linings as they come, and it's certainly been one that we've certainly had time to prepare, and financially we're better off to tackle the season ahead.
What's training been like under the restrictions you've been under for the last few weeks or so?
The first couple of weeks was strange, and we made it clear that we wanted to follow the guidelines. It wasn't a hidden behind closed doors. I mean, we were on what is effectively a public park, so there were eyes on us as well, and even from that, you need to be conscious of it. It's difficult. We've not been perfect. I don't think anyone has. We've tried doing it to the best of our ability. Obviously, non-contact and everything's kind of been individual runs and no tackling and stuff, which is, I mean, 90% of football is that aggression and wanting to get on the ball and shoving people off and having that physical contact. So it's been difficult, but we've learned as we've gone on. That, like I say, we certainly haven't been perfect. We've tried the best the best we can, and we've always made it clear that even now that we are able to get into competitive training, if there is anyone that is concerned about it, because we don't know what people's family life situation is, or we like to think we do, but some people obviously keep that close to their chest. We don't want to put people under unnecessary pressure or unnecessary strain, feeling like they've got to join in. So we've made that absolutely clear. But it's certainly nice to be back to normal now, which is good, or better, as good as we can be.
Do you think it'll have an effect when we come to starting the season, and teams' different ways of approaching this will make a difference, or do you think by then it will kind of be back to normal?
It will certainly make a difference.
As much as it can be.
Yeah, whether it makes a difference to the actual physical game over a course of 90 minutes, I don't think it's going to have too much of an impact. Obviously, the obvious one being the financial impact that it's had on teams. I know a lot of teams are suffering, and I think everyone's taken a little bit of a hit. Whilst I say we're in a better financial position, there'll be a lot of teams around the league and up and down the country that will be suffering because of it. So that's probably the biggest implication. But as far as the actual 90 minutes goes, I don't think it's going to change too much. I mean, the biggest thing, and that's the one thing we're kind of waiting on, is the spectators and when they can get in and what numbers they can get in. Obviously, being back in Basingstoke is a massive thing, and we're expecting large numbers. And it will be a shame if they're having to be reduced, but obviously it's good to be following the guidelines. But we want as many people supporting the boys as humanly possible. So we're hoping it's not going to make too much of an impact. But I mean, I was speaking to a lad the other day, Donny, who was playing over at Slough for their playoffs, and he was saying like they had to come up in their training kit and ready for the game, and can't use change rooms, can't use showers. So that might be the case, but you know what? As long as we get 90 minutes of football, then I don't think we can grumble too much. We're certainly further ahead than I thought we would be this kind of 3-4 months ago.
When we talked before, you seemed quietly confident perhaps that you could get the right players in and have a better season this time round. Are you still feeling that way? How's it changed?
Even more so, I have to admit, even more so. Yeah, we've had a really good, certainly the last 2 or 3 weeks, because we've had that official confirmation, or as official as it can get in the current situation, that the league will be starting on September 19th and possibly FA Cup the week before. It's kind of cemented that idea that it's coming, so it's on its way. So boys are more in a position to kind of commit and think about how the season's going to work and everything. So we've had some really positive conversations. Obviously, we've released 3 or 4 over the course of the last week, and the likes of getting Lewis, Hayden, McKoy, Palmer, and Harrison, and Ben Cooks also agreed, and we've got a few others in the pipeline. So yeah, it's been really good. Recruitment-wise, it's been positive, and it's also been quite nice knowing that Basingstoke still has that pool. And don't get me wrong, like, people will expect that. But considering where the club has been over the course of the last 2-3 years, no fault of the current brigade, but it's nice that people still recognise it as the big club that it is, and the fact that it's got a level of support and the infrastructure, the know-how to get us back to where we belong. And they're buying into the project of trying to get Basingstoke back to where we belong. So it's been really nice on a two-way level, because we haven't got the finance to go and be the big spenders in the league, and we're not probably going to have that for another possibly 2-3 years. And hopefully everything that's in place will allow us to be a little bit more financially dominant. But we have to box a little clever with our money, and in doing so, we want players that want to come and play for Basingstoke. And I'm really pleased to say that we've got a number over the line that are absolutely invested in that project.
Well, that's it. We're starting to see them be announced over social media and that, so the team's coming together, and that kind of gives everyone a bit of excitement and interest towards the new season. Is it the same for you guys from a coaching point of view?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I went over to Winklebury about 2-3 weeks ago now. We were meeting the guys over at DigiDrop, which is a new sponsor of the third kit, and they've been magnificent in their support. And we just took them on a quick tour. I mean, it was for me as well, and Kevin took me on a quick tour of Winklebury. Obviously, we've been there before, but I've never really had the plans in mind walking around. And it's going to be a hell of a facility. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be a really nice place to play football, and a welcoming experience for away fans, and more importantly, from a selfish side for home fans. And we hope that people really buy into what we're trying to produce down there. Obviously, the club see it as a temporary home, and until we can get back our the Camrose, here's hoping, but I think more realistically a second stadium in the town that we can rightfully call our own. Until that point, Winklebury offers a brilliant option. So for that in itself was a really nice moment for me, and it kind of got me. It certainly lit a fire. But the recruitment, the conversations I've been having with Aaron, even from a volunteer perspective, we've got a sports analyst coming in, we've got a nutritionist coming in, we've just secured another sports analyst that's going to look at some of the data that we capture over the course of the first few games to help us in our not just holding players accountable, but also working out where we can improve in certain situations of the game. So we're cranking it up a level over the course of the next few weeks, and it's really pleasing. So everything is slotting into place just at the right time, which is really positive.
That's an interesting point. How much of a difference can those sports analysts and those kind of people make for you over a season?
It's huge. It's huge, and not just from a a day-to-day in terms of improving the quality of the squad, but also on a personal, on an individual level, we want to develop players, and having that access to good video equipment. Obviously, we've invested in the VO software, which looks a hell of a kit in truth. But just having people specialists that can piece that information together, it makes a dramatic difference from us on a team basis, because we can work out, okay, well, we're going wrong in here, or the last 20 minutes of games we need to do something slightly different because we're under the cosh, or whatever it might be. I mean, data is can be dangerous territory, as you'll know. You can look at stats in many different ways, and you can create positives where they're negatives and negatives where they're positives. So we always have to look at the wider picture. But again, it's just that it's trying to create the professionalism in every area in which we can, and you're a part of that. You know, the commentary that you do on a match day is unbelievable and better than I've ever seen any non-league club particularly do it.
Much appreciated.
But it's the truth, Nick, and even little things like that, the fact that supporters that can't get to games can feel a part of it. It's all part of the bigger picture. Basingstoke isn't just a 90-minute match day. It's we want it to be an experience for the community that everyone can buy into. So all these little 1% details will go a long, long way in trying to build this framework of a club that can hopefully propel us forward. But the early signs are very, very good. So we're really pleased with our work.
Sounds good. When you talk about bringing players in for on the pitch, are you looking at particular sort of traits or anything, not necessarily in terms of what they can do on the pitch, but kinds of people and players as well that you can bring into the squad to put together?
Yeah, it's a big thing, and it's no disrespect to the players I had last year, because you only learn experience through learned experience. And with an average age of kind of 17, 18, 19 on the pitch, I mean, some of them hadn't even been in a men's changing room before, and it can be an unforgiving place. But because there were so many of that kind of age group, the changing room dynamic, although it was a positive one, because especially considering where we were as a team at that point, we need to hold more accountability in that change room. We need to drive each other forward, and they need to feel like they can speak and challenge other people, and all with the capacity of wanting to drive forward. But that level of having a character and personality in the changing room not only helps on the pitch, because it will drive you forward. It will not only help with the social side, but it's that want and that drive and that will to want to be better. So the characteristics we've been looking for are big personalities, big characters, people that want to win games of football and win them well, and people that aren't going to shrink under pressure, because we want pressure situations. I mean, it's a real privilege to have pressure, and all right, it wasn't so much of a privilege last year because we were at the wrong end of it. But it's still like you want games where you feel like you've got to challenge yourself and push yourself forward. Otherwise, what's the point? So yeah, we've kind of identified the characters, the personalities, the age groups, the types of player that we want in each different position, and equally to that, having competition for that place. So it's all been thought about. Last year was a little difficult in that sense, because we had limitations in what we could get in, particularly midway through a season. But just having that extra time to plan and process, and also pre-season will make a massive difference in that as well. So yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Do you look at that sort of thing when you're looking at how your team performs on a pitch during a game? Whereas some people might say they're missing a fullback, say, or whatever kind of position, do you look and say we're missing this sort of a character as well, someone who might be a leader or someone who can do this?
Absolutely. And it was something we missed last year. I mean, the amount of times you kind of questioned me on it last year, because it was a big feature of it. I mean, you can look at it two ways. The usually characters come with a little bit of experience because they know what to say, when to say it, and the right environments, and it's also know-how on the pitch. Equally, there were games last year where just the youthful exuberance of the likes of Harrison Cliff and DeAndre Brown, because they didn't have that fear factor of learned experience, because again, it can happen two ways, actually drove us forward. I mean, you look at the game against North Lee last year in the FA Trophy, and the game was won on just sheer determination and youthful almost naivety to a certain extent, because we left ourselves exposed at times to try and get ourselves back into the game. And it paid dividends in that sense. So it does work both ways. But yeah, it's not all about what you do on the ball. I mean, you're on it for 90 seconds to 3 minutes over a course of a 90-minute period. So there's a lot of factors that go into the game. So there's a lot of profiling that we're going through over that we have done now, and also will continue to do across pre-season, to stand us in good stead, because we want a good start.
I want to ask you particularly about McKoy Palmer, who you've mentioned, and I know you said about in terms of your style and your tactics, you want good wingers to get wide, and he's a winger. He's been very prolific, and you're already smiling. So I'm guessing you're quite excited about this signing.
He's a player. I've tried getting McKoy for probably just over a year now. He's incredibly good with the ball at his feet. I mean, I've seen defenders. I mean, over the course of the period that I've watched him, I've seen defenders go for his chop. He just cuts back inside, and they fall for it every single time. And the moment they don't fall for it, or the moment they don't fall for it and go back with him, is the moment he's taken it on the other side. So he's a talented boy. I think we've got to do a little bit of work with him in certain areas of his game. He can absolutely develop, which again is a really exciting thing. But he is a real threat in front of goal. He's a really good kid. He wants to be better. He's got a willingness to want to be better. And I think he could make a real impact in this team. I mean, he's done it at a Hellenic level at a canter, in truth. The guys at Reading City have worked really well with him. There's no reason why he can't go and do that in this league. As long as he continues to work hard and get his head down and listen to people that are going to advise him in the right way. And that's me, that's players, that's Aaron. He'll be a talent. There's no doubt about it.
The release about him also mentioned injury troubles, and that he'll be on a dual reg, I think, with Reading at first. How much of a concern is that for the start of the season for you?
It's not so much a concern now, having spoken to him at great length. The issues I think he had last year was there was too much of an urgency for him to get back. And you can't fault his attitude in that, because he just wanted to get back playing football to help his team out, which is a good trait to have. But I think he's understood over the course of particularly the last few months, especially working with Gideon, our physio, that he knows when to pull out when he starts feeling the injury or thinking, like, he's got trigger points now where he'll ease himself up. So Gideon's been working heavily with him over the course of the last month, 2 months, in strengthening the problem areas. And we've restricted his football a little bit, which I don't think he's particularly liked. But it's that we want to look after the kid, and we want to make sure that he's firing all cylinders come the start of the season. And the relationship with Reading is a good one. I'm very fond of Simon, the manager down there, and he's done a cracking job with the team he's got, and continues to get good players in. He's a talented coach as well as he is a manager. And the relationship is pretty simple. When McKoy is struggling with injury, or there is a reoccurrence, or we feel we need to build his fitness, I've got absolutely no problems with him going to get games for someone like Reading City. They're a good club. There's no doubt about it. They're a well-respected club, and it's needed. I mean, I'm probably 5 minutes from their ground now, so it's no feat to keep tabs on him. But yeah, he's a very, very talented boy. I don't want to kind of over-egg him too much, but I think it's someone the fans will really like watching. He gets the ball and he'll have you on the edge of your seat, because you know he's going to do something. In that kind of sense, he can drift play. He hasn't got the pace of Smarty, but he's certainly got that ability to ghost past people before they've even realised that it's happened. So, yeah, we're excited by him.
Sounds good. From what you know from the players you've got already agreed and those you mentioned in the pipeline, what can fans expect then from your team at the start of next season, or this season? We're
certainly going to be more robust. Defensively, we've added a bit of experience. We've obviously signed Lewis Hayden, who's a very, very talented player, great character, good leader, and will screen that role that we probably haven't had since. I mean, Aaron Cole did it terrifically well, albeit for a very short period. Michael Atkinson back in the day was probably in a similar kind of framework to the way Lewis works. but he'll just marshal in front of that back four and pick the ball off strikers' feet. And so we're excited by him, but we've also added the likes of Darryl Wallers, again, experienced boy, born winner, will throw his head in front of a bus if it means saving a goal. So yeah, we're certainly going to be more robust and defensively sound, which was obviously a bit of a weak point of ours last year, and in honesty, that was down to a little bit of inexperience. And going forward, I think with the talent that we've got, particularly out wide in Secure and McKoy, we've got one or two others in the pipeline that are very exciting prospects as well, and hoping we can get them over the line over the coming days. But we'll certainly have firepower, and we're in conversation with a striker. Whether we can get it over the line or not remains to be seen, but he'd soon quickly become a fan's favourite, I can assure you of that.
Sounds exciting though.
Yeah, don't hold me to that because I've got to get it done. But yeah, this is the thing. Like the whole thing about it is the fact that I can have these conversations now. The fact that we can put last season to bed, and don't get me wrong, it still burns a dark patch in my memory. But it's the opportunity now to take this club forward, and the fact that we're back in Basingstoke is so massive. And players are responding to that. They want to be part of a good team. Obviously, we'll be announcing some players over the course of the coming days, and I think they're of a standard that you kind of go, I want to play with that player. So we're not the finished article yet, but we wouldn't expect to be not going into pre-season. Obviously, we start officially on Saturday. So we're certainly ahead of schedule, and I'm happy. If the season started tomorrow, I'll be happy with the 11.
That's good. We've got going the other way, some players leaving, and Dean Stowe has announced he's someone you've obviously worked with for a while. Was that a mutual decision, or was it more one way than the other?
Yeah, no, it was. I've had lengthy conversations with Stowe over the course of the last couple of months, and even there was a period during the season. Dean loves the club. There's no doubt about it. That we brought him in a couple of years ago with a hopeful project that we could propel forward, and the sad reality of that, we haven't done that. But I can never fault Dean's passion for the club, his efforts. He's a great soundboard. He understands the game. I've got no doubts that he'll be a cracking coach or manager if that's the way he wants to go, and I have a feeling that he will. But I've got all the time in the world for Dean. There's absolutely no hard feelings with the parting of ways. And I'm sure whichever club he goes to, it'll be a huge success. And he deserved that shout. Like, not everyone the announcement of players is one thing, the release of players is another. Obviously, there's no contract, so the releasing of players sounds a bit stupid because we're not actually in control of them. But the Stov certainly deserved that, being the captain, and the captaincy is now up for grabs. So I've had a few texts already from some of the lads. So we'll see what happens over the course of pre-season with that. But yeah, Stowey's been magnificent for me. I love the lad. I'm very fond of him as a person, as I am a player, and I consider him a mate. And I only wish him the best.
You say the captaincy is up for grabs. Is that a message for any of the players watching this?
Well, this is it. I want leaders, and it's actually been quite nice. And there's been a few surprising ones that I wouldn't have expected them to put their name in the hat for a captaincy role. But ultimately, I want 11 leaders. Like the captaincy holds a little bit of obviously there's a certain esteem that comes with it, and to be the first Basingstoke captain leading them out at Winklebury is obviously something that people want to do. But there's a real opportunity there for someone. But the captaincy is one thing, but as I said to you earlier, I want 11 leaders. So it should be the case that I could stick all the names in a raffle and pull one out, and we've got a good leader there. That's the ultimate aim. But yeah, we'll work on the captaincy. I'm in conversation with a couple about the potential of it, but it will be awarded to the right person.
And we've had a couple of pre-season games announced now, and there'll be a couple more, I assume, to come. Yeah. They're going to be behind closed doors at the moment, though, aren't they? Is that something that's set definite, or is it open to change?
To my knowledge, yeah. I mean, sadly, we've obviously got to follow. I say sadly, we've got to follow the government guidelines, and at the moment, that doesn't allow us to have spectators. if you're passing, stay and watch as long as you're socially distancing and all that. But it's difficult, and we want supporters there. Again, it's something that I've marketed to the players, that particularly the new lads that have come in, that they will support you and they will get behind you. As far as I'm concerned, they're the best supporters in the league. So we want them there. There's no doubt about it. But to enable us to do that, it needs to be safe and secure. So at the moment, all of them will be behind closed doors. I'm hoping that we'll at least get a couple in maybe early September that will be open to the public. In what capacity, I've got no idea. It's not my position to say, but at the moment, yes, they'll be behind closed doors.
Okay, that's all my questions. I'm done.
Perfect.